Hey, leadership listeners. Today we'll talk about communication again with Dan Delton, great leader in his field in HR field because then he spent 30 years in HR field. And I would like to tell even more about that, but then we'll present himself once again and he will add value to you. So you'll be able to understand how to connect with your people, how to communicate more effectively. And then we'll provide you today with tools for your effective communication. And this is basically the main topic today. It's tools for your effective communication in your company or organization, wherever you work, or maybe it can be church or nonprofit organization. So please put likes, subscribe, and today you'll listen this great man, my friend, John Maxwell team member, Dan Delton. Hi, Dan.
Hi, Alex. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity to come back.
Nice to see you here. So, as I mentioned, people really want to hear about tools, what they can use for effective communication in their organizations and companies. As I know, you had previous, not so long ago, you had a speech in the church, and I'm sure you inspired so many people there. And very soon you'll have different events, and I know that people just waiting for you, and they looking forward to your speech, especially for some points, for some advices in HR field. Just please, what can you tell them before you come to them? What message you'll bring to them?
Well, what I really hope to report and to connect with people about is self-awareness. It's a kind of a hot topic of lately. We've heard a lot about emotional intelligence, but self-awareness goes a little deeper than that. It's having that courage to be able to take a very candid and open journey inward to understand yourself so that you can better be a steward of your relationships.
Yeah. Guys, I think you're waiting for Dan to see him and ask him so many questions that I know he just told you a little thing, but I'm sure you'll ask him so many questions. I just ask you permission to ask Dan before he'll come to you to ask him about different values, what he will add to you during that speech. Dan, I have a question. First of all, I know that you have in your field HR professionals and HR experts. How do you see them differently, experts and professionals?
Mhm. That's a good question. I think that the difference between an expert and a professional is that the expert tends to really own their subject matter knowledge, but they may not necessarily be continuing to grow. They're sort of living on those laurels. They're known for a certain body of knowledge. People come to them for that wisdom, but they're not necessarily really driving forward. And in my opinion, a professional is somebody that is always growing, always looking for something that they do not know. John Maxwell says it best. Every day you need to be doing something to grow, read, write, listen to other people, take notes of quotations, just continue to drive forward. And in my opinion, I think the difference between an expert and a professional is that the professional is probably going to continue to drive forward and continue to grow.
Yeah, I see. Guys, so basically, Dan's message is very clear. Prepare your pens, pencils, just different notepads, and be ready for so much value because you're eager to grow. You want to develop yourself as expert. You want to become an expert in your field, and Dan will add value to you through his speeches, and especially when he talk about relationship management. It's really interesting topic. Could you tell us something about that?
Well, first of all, we know as being followers of John Maxwell that you don't have to be a manager to be a leader. A
Yeah,
leader is somebody who really steps forward, who is having influence on other people.
correct.
Um, but regardless of whether you're a leader or have a title of a manager or any combination of those two, you are given the responsibility of being a good steward of a 360-degree array of relationships. Managers have to be having a good steward of their relationship with the people that they report to. They have to have a good stewardship over the relationships with those other managers that are lateral to them. And most importantly, a good manager is a leader and is a good steward of those relationships to those people who report to them.
Yes, that's correct. And what I want you to ask you then also, because for now, your listeners are not able to ask you these questions because this is a recording. But I would like to ask you a question about when it comes to corporate culture and CEO comes to your department or to HR department, and he brings together all of those great people who are HR experts, HR professionals, head of HR divisions or departments. And that CEO, he asked, guys, please, I'd like you to build, just help me to build strong culture. And I know communication is essential to this point. What you would recommend to those professionals, how they can help their leaders to grow?
If the building of culture is the objective, like any other business objective, we have to identify what does success look like? What does the perfect end product look like? What's it made of? Um, if our leader, the head of our organization, came to us and said, help me develop a good and strong corporate culture, I'd want to find out from them, what does success look like for them? What do you want the culture to be? And then we establish those criteria, those expectations. Most of the time, an organization's culture can be defined by its mission, its vision, and most importantly, its values. Those become the established standards that will identify what success for that organization looks like. Then secondly, once that's established, I would make sure that those objectives are supported from the top down, not only by actions and words of the leadership, the senior leadership, but also in policy, procedure, guidelines, anything that is geared toward the operational success of our organization needs to be in line with those things that will cultivate the value and been supported and then just followed up on. Then the next level of things that managers and leaders need to be attentive to is accountability, holding people to the established standards that we've already identified as success and we already identified will make up our culture.
Yes, that's true. It's a very good point. But let's assume I am HR professional and I come to you then and I say, sir, look, our CEO just came to us. He asked us to do just to help him, but he doesn't care. What should we do with this? What would you tell me and how would you behave in that situation?
That is a tough question, and unfortunately, it is all too common.
That's true. Very common.
You run the risk, and this is where being a good steward of relationships are, that HR professional, I would think would need to come together with the other leaders that report to the CEO and say, we've been charged with this responsibility. Let's help us first build it upward. Let's come together with some objectives, with some things that we think build the culture, and then take it to the big boss to at least get his buy-in. Then we could run and run with it. And at least that way, at the level just below the CEO, you've got the establishment of those objectives, those values, that mission and vision. And you know that at least at that level, it's going to be supported. And then from there, build in the accountability measures.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. And especially I love what you said then about to get his buy-in. Because leaders, basically people never buy into leaders' vision, mission, or values until they buy into their leader first. It's
Well
a great
said.
point. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. I think that HR listeners or leaders who listen to us, because everybody is a leader, somebody less, somebody more, but all of us we born with some natural leadership inclination, and we can grow that ability every single day. And
Yeah. I
how you
mean,
can
John
do that?
Maxwell says that leadership is having influence, is
Absolutely,
influencing other people, influencing the organization, influencing a situation. That is
absolutely.
leadership.
And do you remember what John told us? He said that how can you influence people? By valuing them, by
Right.
adding value to them. Because we cannot add value to the person if you don't value him or her. And we
Agreed.
cannot add value to the person if we secretly we just feel that he's nobody. So it's impossible. So we need to see value in the person. And what I see from my experience, and I think you saw also that so many great people, they don't see value in other people. They simply don't see those values. It's not because they are stupid or they not professional. No, they simply don't see those values and they don't understand how leadership works. And what you just mentioned about communication in our previous podcasts and recordings, that communication is essential to leadership. Could you tell us once again about that point? How leaders
Well,
communicate?
yeah, to kind of just speak to what you just said about, they don't see the value in others. And I don't think it's because they're lazy or that they don't, that they're just being indifferent. I think that too many of us fall into the trap, and I've done it myself. We fall into the trap of being so
Same here, same
inundated
here.
with daily stuff. I call it we're too busy doing our job to be able to do our job. And what I mean by that is that we get so wrapped up in the day-to-day tactical things that we don't pay attention to those things that enhance relationships, that enhance communication, and we don't and grow ourselves, that self-awareness, the need of growth. Um, but it again, it's not negligence. It's just that we feel as though that there's stuff going on. Um, that is taking our time away from those value adding things that need to happen for growth to occur.
Yeah, that's true. That's absolutely true. Then could you tell us, please, what topics will you cover in those speeches next week?
Yeah, thank you for opportunity to kind of talk about that. As an HR professional, I've learned that the way to better self-awareness is to have some kind of tool that helps you understand and take that journey inward. And most of the time that I have found the most effective tools are um, personality profiling tools. There are any number that are out there. John Maxwell has a version of DISC, which is a
Yeah,
personality profiling tool.
right.
There is Insights Discovery, wonderful company out of the UK that has some wonderful material. There is Enneagram is another one that is very popular of late. I've had one that we worked with families called the Family Zoo, which identify different personality types as animals. But the whole idea is that there are some aspects about ourselves that we learn. We learn how we communicate, how we take in and give out information, how we make decisions, Are we making decisions based more on fact or more on feeling? How we actually manage and like to be managed, how we deal with relationships. These personality profile tools allow analytical information, make it available for each of us to understand ourselves better, but also be able to integrate it into our working world to to help manage our people. If I can flex to the type of communication that best fits the people that report to me, then my communication is more rich. The same way with my boss, the same way with my peers. So first of all, communication, how we process information, how we make decisions, and how we basically go about managing our relationships as managers as well as just individuals.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. And you also will teach how to use DISC.
How to use DISC, or most of the tools are going to categorize behavior or personality in one of four quadrants that deal with interpersonal relationships and, the relationship between introversion and extroversion, and the relationship between data-driven or feelings-based decision making.
Yeah. And I think it's very important then because a lot of companies, they just implement already DISC from different versions of DISC. But what I see that they learn how to use this tool to assess who is who, but they don't really practice those values. They don't really learn those lessons from DISC. And this is why I ask you if you'll teach them how to use DISC, because I know that you have so much knowledge about that and you truly can add so much value to people through DISC study. And also what I realized that people communicate every single day and they use that DISC, but they don't really practice. They don't really practice that stuff that they just learned. They learn and they just put that book in the shelf. And they forgot. They don't practice.
Yeah. It does have to be incorporated in whenever you're bringing in a tool like that or any kind of assessment that's going to help you with a procedure, or even if you bring in a consultant to look over your process. There has to be changes in the implementation to incorporate that new knowledge into how you do things for it to have lasting value. Or like you said, it will end up basically just being sit on the shelf and collect dust.
Yes, absolutely. And also, I want to tell leaders that, folks, this great person, then he's very well-known expert in his field, and he was traveling around the world by adding value to people in different industries, different sectors. And I want to encourage you to invite him to your event because he has so much value in him. And basically, it's impossible to record everything, all of his values and all of his knowledge in this short podcast. But I'm sure that Dan will be able to add so much value to you. And based on what he just said, based on what he just taught you, and open your eyes about communication, about tools that you can use. And also, he teaches those tools, not just grab those tools, show it like nice presentation, nice PowerPoint presentation, and he just leave. No, guys, he teaches you how to implement those tools every single day with every single department in every single team, because team building is very important point in every single organization, and also it's a consistent work, daily work that you have to do daily. But without those tools, communication tools that Dan provides, it's impossible to build effective team. You can be productive, but you're not effective. And why? Because leadership has a multiplying effect. And then exactly he teaches you how to use those tools to be effective leader. Another question then I just wanted, just sorry, I talked too much marketing for you. Just, give me a second. I just wanted to ask another question.
Sure.
When you come to speaking events and you see those bright people, bright minds, I know that everybody just, there is a law of magnetism. We attract who we are, not who we want. And everybody wants to talk to you, but you don't have time physically to talk to every single person because every single HR professional, he has his questions, his challenges in his company or his department. What one advice would be for them that would cover all of those challenges? I know that it's impossible to cover all of those challenges, but what advice would you give them to help them to navigate through that communication journey?
I think I could answer that the same way that people who join the Maxwell leadership team, they're told right up front, you can't be good at everything. The same concept goes to you can't tackle everything. The old adage is that, how do you eat an elephant? Well, one bite at a time. Pick one. Stephen Covey, in his book, Seven Habits for Highly Effective People, taught the concept of big rocks. Take care of the big rock things first. The big rock things are the things that are both that are urgent and important. Now, you have to just pick one and get good at that. Then you can build off of that to take the next thing on. So I would say, don't look at the whole issue holistically. It'll tear you up. It'll drive you crazy. But if you okay, I can take this one aspect of it and work on it, and then from there, build the next step that will solve the next portion of the problem. So yeah, problems that we have with organizations, challenges that we have with organizations can be multifaceted. Find a foundational one, start with that, fix it, build on that.
Thank you, Dad. But another question. I know that those folks, they will have more questions. Could you share, please, your contact information? Because I'm sure that those people, they will want to contact you and ask you even more questions because this answer is amazing answer that you just gave to them. But to all of us, not just to HR experts, to all leaders, but how they can contact you.
Well, thank you. Yeah. My website is still under construction, so I won't give you that URL just yet. I'll share it with you and we could forward it out later. But I can be reached at Dan, D-A-N, at P as in Paul, 314 consulting.com. So that's Dan at P314 consulting.com. And I'm on LinkedIn. You could look me up as it's Daniel Dalton, and my profile is there, and I take messages through LinkedIn as well.
Okay, guys, I think that everybody just understood and wrote down the contact information of Dan, and I'm sure you have so many questions, and Dan will be able to answer each of that question because he really cares about people and he adds so much value to people. And also, I wanted to tell you that very soon we'll have with Dan another podcast where we'll cover different issues that will be very important for your organization, for your team, for your business. Because communication is essential to leadership, but communication is not leadership. So it's a very intriguing point that I just gave you because communication is a huge, huge, huge part of leadership. How to connect with people, how to communicate with them. But also we should to learn about more stuff that Dan has for you. And also I will try to add value to you as well based on my experience and my past military career. And also then I just wanted to ask you, when you mentioned about your expertise, do you consider yourself expert or professional?
I like to think of myself as a professional. I am a lifelong learner, and regardless of what level of knowledge or capabilities I have, I know that there is more to be learned. There is, it simply can't, it's not a stopping point. We've got to keep growing. That's the key to remaining a professional and becoming the best leader that you can be.
Amazing. And then can I call you then Coach Delton?
Coach Dalton, sure.
Okay,
I like the ring of that.
Thank you for being with us today. Thank you for adding so much value to leaders, to listeners, because I know that this video will be watched in different places, different parts of the world, and people will be able to understand how to communicate properly. And I'm sure very soon we'll travel around the world and we'll add even more value to people who want to grow their businesses, who want to grow their societies, and who want to become better and more effective leaders. So guys, subscribe on the channel and don't forget to leave your comments, to ask questions, and Dan and myself will be able to answer those questions because they're very important for leadership development in your team, in your organization, and your community. Thank you, Dan, for being with us today. So hope to see you very soon.
Thanks for the opportunity, Alex. I enjoyed our discussion.